Bidenomics was the most ambitious set of economic policies adopted by any Democratic administration since at least the 1960s. And it had multiple elements to it. First, there was a large stimulus package to try to bring the economy back after the pandemic hit, and there was mass unemployment. And so the Biden administration tried to respond to that. There were also policies to try to break up some of the monopolies that had developed in the American economy, so significant antitrust initiatives, and then a whole series of spending programs that were designed to build back the American economy, to build infrastructure, to develop the chip technologies that are so critical to the modern economy, and to address climate change. A very ambitious, unprecedented level of ambition and policy to try to speed the process of moving away from a fossil fuel-based economy to a decarbonized economy. All of these were part of the package that was attempted in 2021 and 2022. Not all of them were implemented, but even the ones that were able to get through Congress amounted to more than had really been attempted by any administration in the United States in half a century. How much did it accomplish? I think the record overall is mixed. Compared with other countries that had also been hit by the pandemic, the U.S. recovered more rapidly than those countries did. It got back onto its growth trajectory that had predated the pandemic. Unemployment rate fell more quickly in the United States than it did in other countries. Wage inequality decreased in the United States. So there were definitely some gains that were important. But of course, for many people looking at this, they were disappointed by what happened in the 2024 election when the Democratic administration, represented by Kamala Harris, lost a close, fiercely fought campaign to Donald Trump. So as a political matter, the origins of Bidenomics, there was an idea that Americans called deliverism, that if you actually delivered for people, that if you actually addressed the economic challenges that particularly working class Americans were facing, provided people with higher benefits, with better job opportunities, that delivering these things would actually produce significant political rewards. And the 2024 election was a disappointment for many people who had hoped to see that kind of outcome. Now, I've suggested that in fact, 2024 was a terrible year to run for re-election, and the governments across the West that stood for re-election did very poorly in 2024, and that it's probably a mistake to treat Bidenomics as the reason why the Democratic Party failed to win the election. Election was very close. They actually did better than most sitting governments did when they ran for election, but of course, they didn't do well enough to actually carry them over the finish line in November. Well, I think the implications of Bidenomics is kind of a split message depending on where you sit. I think if you sit in Europe, if you're in another affluent democracy that is thinking about how to deal with these economic challenges and succeed politically, there are probably a lot of positive messages that you could learn from Bidenomics. I think that while it was imperfect and there are obviously some significant policy failures and policy limitations, overall that economic record looks pretty good. And so the fact that Democrats lost the 2024 election should not be overinterpreted as meaning we shouldn't try those policies because they didn't produce electoral success. The Democrats were running against some very serious political headwinds and economic headwinds in 2024. For the United States, though, I think it's hard to imagine that given the situation that we face now with the very serious challenges, not just to the American economy, but to American democracy, that you could simply imagine that a future Democratic administration is going to be able to kind of go back to Bidenomics and rerun things more or less the same way. I think we now are in a situation of political crisis in the United States, and that any administration, any attempt by the center left or the political left to try to seize back the initiative is going to have to be more forward-looking, and it's going to have to respond to the incredible pressures and challenges that the Trump years are creating for us.